That was really gay. Hi guys, and welcome to this month's Greenwich Literary Symposium Book Club review.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This month we have been reading Martina Cole's new novel, Betrayal. The blurb says, Aiden O'Hara has been the head of the family since he was a kid, and he's going to keep it that way. Jade Dixon watches his back. Mother of his son, she is the one who makes him invincible. But Jade's been in the game a lot longer than Aiden. She knows no one's indestructible. And when you're at the top, that's when you've got to watch the hardest, especially the ones closest to you.
It became apparent, like, from the first few chapters, and the chapters like really short, aren't they?
Yeah,
so it's easy bite-sized kind of way to read it. But it became apparent, the book's called like Betrayal, that there wasn't going to be one big betrayal. It's a complete series of betrayals for people that are connected, people that love each other, and everything like that. And I love that about it. Like, it wasn't leading up to one huge event, even though there is a huge event at the end, but like, it wasn't leading up to that. There was just a series of different betrayals, and it was like, oh, who's going to screw who over, who's going to do that, and everything like that. It was brilliant. It was really, really well done.
And when you said about the series, that's what I felt about it, that it was, rather than when you pick up a book and it's a film and that's it, it's from the beginning to the end, that's it, it's done. This felt like an amazing box set. It could easily be stretched out into being a really sort of gripping box set, because you get to know the characters so well.
Particularly the way the book's split up into sections that each jump on a number of years, maybe 5 or 10 years after one another. It was very much an anthology of the arc of these people's lives.
I loved that though, the fact that it did jump forward. So you went from a baby to getting married to having a child to that child getting married. Like we lived their lives.
That's what I mean about how
it was epic. It was completely epic. It was like the East London crime underbelly version of Beowulf or the Odyssey or something.
And the thing you were saying about there only being one big thing at the end, I found that really interesting, because Martina Cole writes from the perspective of the killer. It was interesting that in most crime novels, the murders are described so intricately, but whenever anyone was killed in this, it was very matter of fact. They were killing someone just to get rid of them, and there was no emotion there, because that's what they feel. Whereas normally we would have it described.
And I don't think it was just the killing either. I think all of the stories were kind of written from this kind of existential, amoral perspective. In that, sorry, I'm struggling to get my words out. But the people who we were talking about, you're in their head. Whatever you're reading about, you're in their head. And so there's no like, oh, they were selling drugs and it was a bad thing that they were selling drugs. It was really matter of fact that there's a drug deal on, there's a product, there's a supplier, and this is going to happen. Even to the point of, I mean, it only kind of cursory mentions the fact that there's like a child being murdered in a brothel. It's very matter of fact the way it goes on, but that's very much in the heads of the people that are doing it, because it's just a business to them. And it was really, really clever the way that was kind of framed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you get to know the characters, I think I know these characters more so than any other book that I've read, because each chapter, it almost like looks at a different character's perspective. It tells you how much they care or how they feel about each other, and it's quite repetitive that. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back to how much Jade loved Aiden, or Aiden loved Jade. That they loved each other, and we get that. But every time it's said, it's like it's just emphasising again how these characters feel about each other, how their relationships are. It really gives you that very clear idea about where everybody is in the whole situation.
And I think because it is a 600-page book, longest book I've ever read, and I would say the main story is only the last 200 pages. But those 400 pages before were so necessary, because then they were your family, and you knew everyone inside and out. And when the big thing does happen, I always say in book reviews, there were too many characters and they all get introduced too quickly. The book introduces characters one by one first with the family, and then they bring in new people, and then there are boyfriends. And I found that very easy to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it spiralled outwards from a sense, didn't it? Like widening.
So you don't just get
the
introduced to
orbit.
20 characters at once, and then you have
Yeah.
to remember who's who.
Well, my favourite of all of them was him, and he just had to swallow his knob.
I
My
love the language. Go
I
on.
noted my favourite quote was at the quite near the beginning of the book, and I didn't find anything else. My favourite part was the men that she gravitated towards were about as much use to her as a fucking pork chop in a mosque.
Love it.
That was my
I love
favourite
that.
quote.
I loved. So there's a couple of things. I don't know where I put my quote that I loved, but it was something about a giraffe. Like the height of it, it went over like a giraffe's fart. It went over his head like a giraffe's fart. It was something like that.
Oh yeah.
And I loved that. But what I loved about the language, and I don't know whether this was on purpose or not, I feel like it was that she would introduce a word. So, for example, dispassionately, and then she would use the word in one context and then use it again a couple of chapters later in a completely different context. And it just gave you, I think that just was part of her trying to show us who the characters were, because it just gave you that different understanding of that particular word from each character's perspective.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was very clever. I feel like the way she gets you to know the characters is very clever.
Yeah, and also I think when she's talking about a particular character, when the narrative is talking about a particular character, you're in the character's head. And so where there's kind of a little bit of repetition in the words used, it always goes back to the same person. Like Eric always wanted that in that order, and that must be how he spoke.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think where that phraseology happens, it's always in the same character's head.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
I think that was my favourite thing about it, is the way that we got to know those characters. And
Yeah.
the way we saw everything unfold.
I liked the way as well that I ended up caring about everyone. I cared about them all. And like Reva should really have been a pretty, I mean, noble to an extent, but a pretty detestable, dislikable character.
Yeah.
But
I love that.
Yeah.
she kind of reminded me of a couple of people that I've met along the way in the past. And
I think she reminded me a bit of me. Like, she means well, but she just has a few drinks and then gets a little bit out of control.
I have to say, whenever all of Reva's dialogue, it was your mum's voice in my head.
But this is what I mean about getting to know the characters. We were talking before about what we think Reva's house looked like inside. And there's no description of that. We don't get told it, we don't get drip fed exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
But we know what it looked like.
Yeah.
We know what it we know them all so well. We can sort of really visualise it because of life experience rather than because of drip fed description, which I think is quite clever actually.
Yeah. I think one thing I'm really glad of, I'm really, really glad that I read this book, because I think am I a reader or not? I'm not a massive reader, and we all started this book club because we wanted to get into reading a bit more.
Course.
But I think I've been very linear in terms of the kind of books that I think that I want to read. And this has opened up my mind to a complete new genre, and I'm really, really happy about that.
Yeah, I enjoyed every second of it. I really enjoyed it.
Right. Guess where I'm going in a couple of weeks?
Go on.
I'm going to Martina Cole's next book launch.
Oh, are you?
So, out of 5, what are we giving it?
Okay, so I'm going for a 4.5.
4, 4.5.
No, I'm going for a 4.5.
Okay. Any reasons?
Because I loved it. I don't think I've read the best of hers yet. The best is yet to come.
Pete?
I'm going to go with a 5, because I couldn't put it down.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a 5 because, like we touched on earlier, in every review that we've done, I've said it was difficult to get into.
Yeah.
And like you said, 2 pages and I was hooked.
I mean, the first chapter is a page and a half and it's got you.
Yeah. And then I was reading it in bed and I had 200 pages left and I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning because I could not put it down. Not because anything was majorly happening, but I knew it was coming towards the end and I needed to know what happened to these people.
We all knew something was coming.
And so I think to have grabbed me from the beginning and to have held me right through to the end, the biggest book I've ever read in my life. That's saying something.
And you finished it first.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't read it, Martina Cole's Betrayal, it's her newest book. Go and check it out. If you have read it, then leave a comment down below to let us know what you thought of the book. And if you have any ideas for what you'd like us to read next month, let us know in the comments as well below. This month, we have selected to read Margaret Atwood's Hagseed, which Pete has picked this month. I have no idea what it's about. Would you like to tell us?
Well, we did read the thing, we did read the blurb.
Yeah, I think, without having read it, it's about a guy that's trying to put on a performance of Tempest
Oh yeah.
at an arts festival, gets fired at the last minute, and ends up taking some kind of revenge several years later.
Great.
Sounds great. I love a bit of
Yeah.
Atwood.
So
myself.
check back next month to see what we thought of that video. Thank you very much for watching. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, all 30 people that will probably see it. And subscribe to my channel for more insightful book reviews from the Greenwich Literary Symposium. Cheers!
Bye. Oh, cheers.
I'm out. Peace.
I'm out.
We're drunk, aren't we?
That's all.